none of us really want to know what we're doing bad. Do we want to? Yes, like we do, because we want to grow from it, but hearing it in this moment.
All right, hello and welcome to Conversations with SSBE. At least that's what we're calling it for now. This is the first episode, I'm super excited about that, where we're going to do a deeper dive into the topic for Friday Conversations. And I'm super excited to have Kelsey on as our first guest to experiment with this. So thanks for being a guinea pig.
Yeah, absolutely.
And welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you and I talked a bit about this topic, and I think it's such an important topic for all of us. One, because we all deal with it to some extent or another. And two, because as our awareness of that grows, we realize that other people in our lives are also dealing with it. And it can help us navigate relationships and I think show up better for each other. And so for those of you that haven't been privileged to be a part of this conversation, other than just the two of us, we're talking about imposter syndrome. And I think that it's an interestingly difficult thing to talk about for everybody, but it's one of those things like by acknowledging it, you automatically put yourself in this space of vulnerability, which could very much backfire. And so as we're interacting with it, I'm really curious to dive into what your experience with it has been and like where you're at. So I don't want to steal too much of your thunder, but you recently transitioned to working in insurance and with Naomi Kahn and talk about how great of a transition that is. But talk a little bit about like what's that transition felt like? Highs, lows, good, bad, like what's been your aha moments around that?
Well, if anything, I feel like I have just learned a lot about myself. I've been really stretched in all the different ways. I honestly can look back to even just beginning. So I was a teen mom, and I look back at those times and I'm kind of just, it's kind of going through these seasons of that, of like really feeling that imposter syndrome. But kind of like an example of where I started was being a teen mom. I had a son with Down syndrome, and he had a ton of medical issues, and I finished my sophomore year of high school in the hospital doing online school, and I had people reach out to me that were like, you know, my friend has a child with Down syndrome, or we have medical stuff, and people would just ask me to talk to these people thinking I had good input. And I'm just like, who am I to like give these input, because these people have stories that are like far tougher than what I felt like mine was. And when I look back, of course, I'm like, wow, that was tough. Yeah. And you know, in the season, you're kind of almost tunnel vision, and you just get through it. So you don't even really realize the extent of what you're doing in that particular case. But it really just was people putting me up on a pedestal is what it felt like. And it was just like, I don't want to be up here. But at the other side of it, it was really nice because it was really relatable. I mean, speaking of like medical ways, like I just had recently made a post about my son's update. And I don't really post about that type of stuff too much, but I had like 4 different people reach out that they were going through the similar stuff and just wanted input, and that they're doing that. And you kind of just forget that like everyone else is going through it too, like in different ways, but everyone has these seasons. But as far as the transition to being in insurance and just even being in a more role, I came from a credit union, and you can kind of just, you know, I was a trainer, so I had to speak in front of people and be in front of people, but it was never like you had to, I wasn't like networking as much or anything like that. And when you start doing that, like in insurance per se, like you start networking with people, and if anything, for people like me, you like start getting more eyes on you, and then you're like, am I, like, should I be here? Like, I mean, even this podcast, like, who am I to talk about imposter syndrome? Because I haven't figured it out. Like, I still struggle with it, and, but it is something that the more you talk about it, the more it's just normalized, and people, like, I mean, CEOs deal with it, and people that are very, very successful still wake up in the mornings like, what am I doing? Like, or is anyone gonna show up for me?
Right.
You know, anything like that. And it's definitely been a season of stretching and realizing that it's normal and it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's a thing.
Yeah. Well, there's so many layers to what you just said, like so many threads I want to pull on, but the one that really stood out to me was just that having your first kid. Mm-hmm. And my oldest is 14 now, and yours is 12. Yeah. So we're kind of in that same mm-hmm. season of life as far as the age of our kids. And I remember, and I still feel this almost dualism or dichotomous sensation of like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I literally, like, I think we talked about this when we chatted beforehand, like, they're just gonna let me take this tiny human being out of this safe space into the chaos of my life, which, mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not a super chaotic individual, but, you know, it's like, and, you know, people joke all the time that kids don't come with an instruction manual and all this stuff, but it's like, there's this, like, what? I'm awfully underprepared for this. Mm-hmm. And then also, like, I think, like, the first night, like, you get them to fall asleep, and it's like, even in that, it's like, you go check on them. You're like, all these things. Yeah. And you bring two interesting things to it. The Down syndrome mm-hmm. is, like, there's so much in that of, like, I wasn't expecting this. Mm-hmm. I think we talked about, like, this awareness that, like, oh, I'm the one that's going through this. You know, you hear about somebody that their kid has Down syndrome or something else, and you just kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine. Mm-hmm. But then, like, all of a sudden it's happening to you, and it's just, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. But then somebody points it out, and they're like, wow, you're really, like, going through this, and you have something to offer people, and you're like, oh, I am going through something. This is big. And then you mentioning, like, you were very young when you had your first. Mm-hmm. And so as we grow through experiences, we feel more equipped to deal with things. And so to be so young and have your first and have that challenge of Down syndrome, mm-hmm. like, all of that piled on, and then the flip side of that rhythm of, like, you got through it. Mm-hmm. You did one day at a time. I think we talked about that. It's like, yeah, you just do the next thing mm-hmm. and see where you end up. And right. yeah, you have a level of expertise on things that is valuable. Mm-hmm. Which is the other thing that I've been struggling with a lot lately is, like, once I internalize something, I almost take on this, I assume that everybody knows it. Mm-hmm. I take it for granted. Mm-hmm. And so you're talking about, like, when you're training, mm-hmm. like, you had a very specific lane, mm-hmm. if you will, that as long as you were in that lane, you're like, I know this subject matter, I can teach it to you, I can help you interact with it. Mm-hmm. Now you're in this, like, I'm dealing with all types of people. Some of them know what I'm trying to offer better than I do, mm-hmm. and I feel silly trying to, like, teach them how to be a better listener or something like that. Mm-hmm. Other people, it's like, this is going to be mind-blowing for them, and finding that, like, how do you find your depth mm-hmm. of your audience is so much more challenging when it's not like, here's some fresh recruits that don't know anything about what we do or how to do it, and you're going to teach them A through Z, and it's a done deal. Mm-hmm. So has that been part of your experience?
Well, to be honest, because when we got new hires, you know, a lot of them, there was a wide range, right? You'd have people that came from banking, and you'd have to break them and make them
sure.
learn new habits and break bad habits. Yep. And then, you know, you'd have people that honestly we often preferred were, like, straight off scratch, like, just you had to teach them from square one. And that kind of leads to insurance too. Like, I mean, a lot of those qualities where you are teaching people from, like, not even knowing what anything is, which, to be honest, is what I hear more of than not, or people being overconfident and just thinking that things are covered or whatever. So there is that wide range of people that you're educating there, and it is very. Imposter syndrome definitely hits me in the face when I have someone call in. They're like, know exactly what they want and all the things, and it's just like, yeah, you're right, you do know more than me. But it's like, I mean, take it as, that's like one of those times that you just take it as a learning and appreciate that people, that somewhere along the line someone did educate them from square one, and
Sure.
you're doing that to other people. And you know, just there's it's all a reframing the mindset, right? Like
Right.
in all types of different, I mean, that's partly why how you get through imposter syndrome too, is reframing mindset of, you know, and this is just a general good practice in life anyways, is reframing, like, what's a positive thing to look at of this.
Yeah.
And for that, you know, it's that that you're getting to learn from them, or you know, all those different ways, and someone, you can do that for other people.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Yeah.
I love that. Speaking of reframing, there's a guy I follow on one of the social medias. I think it's Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say his name is Ving Rhames, and he's a public speaker coach. So he coaches public speakers, and a lot of his content is about that. And one of the things that he said that resonated with me, and I think speaks to that, is if you get up on stage, if you're, and whether it's on stage, big or just small stage, you know, podcast, and in your mindset, you are performing. You have all these people looking at you, and what are they thinking about me, and how do they perceive me, and are they going to think I'm an idiot? You know, then you're going to be like a wreck of nerves,
Yeah.
because all you're just worried about like how you appear.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if you flip that and it's like, I have the privilege, first of all, right? It's not like I have to, it's an I get to offer value to an audience.
Mm-hmm.
And you focus on them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what am I doing to improve their lives? Even in this podcast, like I try to keep my audience in mind, right? Like, who is listening to this, and am I adding value to their lives? Mm-hmm. And as long as that is where my focus is, and I think this is why an interview format is good, because it's not just me talking, it's like conversational, and like I can actually see like, oh, are things landing, and you know, oh, that like kind of that reflective. But as long as our focus is outward on the people that we're serving, then we're not, way less focused on how do I look? Do I, you know, what do people think about me? And if there's people out there that they're listening and they're like, oh, she's so whatever, he's such a like, fine.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't even occur to me when what I'm thinking about is presenting value. But when I'm thinking about, oh, what are they going to think about me? All I hear are those voices. And some of the voices, and this is maybe even where you start to listen to the voices, are positive, right? Like, oh, somebody's going to think that I'm got my stuff together because I have a podcast, or I'm on a podcast. Right. So and that's where it starts. But then it's like, oh, then I hear these voices. So I think keeping the voices out of your head, but like focusing on providing value, whether it's in a public speaking or in a, you know, somebody calls into the insurance with me with real estate. Even as you were talking about that, I'm thinking through, I've had those clients that either genuinely educated me because they're doing something that I've never interacted with before. It's like, you got to stay humble and be like, okay, this is new, I get to learn. But more often than that are the ones that think they know. And it's like, okay, how do I provide value? How do I help you realize that's not how this works, while still being gentle and not over the top with anything?
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. And honestly, when you speak to that stuff, like vulnerability just keeps going to my head, because I think that when people, I feel like when you're in these situations, talking about it and being vulnerable, like, helps you form those mindsets, because when those thoughts do creep in too, you can just remember that, like, you're not the only one. And when you talk about it with people, like whether that's your boss, your friends, whoever's in your circle, like, I mean, I know for me, when I talk to my boss, it's just like, I feel better. Because like, it's okay, like these things are okay to think about and to feel. It's just a matter of like having those people in your corner too that are really like, no, like, remember you did this, this, and this, and you're rocking it, like you're doing so good. And like and having that, you don't get that without being vulnerable, because people don't know what I can't read your mind.
Right.
Although we wish that we would, and
Yeah.
that people could, or maybe we even expect that they do. I mean, speak of your spouses.
Yes.
You're like you don't know that. Like, why don't you know me? But it's like you don't know unless you voice it.
Very true.
And that's even in the professional atmosphere too. Like if you aren't talking about these things, then nothing's gonna happen. And you have to be vulnerable, which is where, you might listen to other podcasts or, a thing like that, but if you don't talk about it with your people, like you might just be like, oh, that's something that they deal with, but it's not as relatable to you and your space or whatever. I feel like which actually leads me to the other piece of comparison. Comparison speaks so much into imposter syndrome, I think, and just on all aspects of life. I feel like that's where, social media is talked about and people putting up this front of, how good their life is and how successful they are. And then, there's some networking groups that are just like, I've got my crap together and it's like, I know what I'm doing. And when you're faced with that or looking at that, you're like, what am I doing wrong? And like, why am I struggling with the thoughts that I'm not good enough? But it's not that. They are too. I'm sure they go home at night and they're like thinking about stuff. And not that that's like, I mean, I hope that. I don't want that to sound negative, but like that keeps people humble too. Yeah. And hopefully they can talk about it with somebody. You meet those people out in networking groups and they're almost have a script memorized, and they're not, you can like feel the not real, but they need to listen to it.
Yeah. No, that's such an interesting thing that you bring up, and I think it's probably core to it. And it's such a fascinating, the way that it spreads, like both for good and for bad. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm picturing the networking events that I'm at, and it is very interesting because there is, to an extent, like the adage is true. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression, right? And so like if I show up to a networking space, to any space where I'm meeting new people for the first time, and I show up vulnerable, I show up, whatever that looks like, oh, my life's a mess, I'm a rat, whatever, like, that's not a great first look. And if I show up, like, just dialed, that's potentially maybe too far the other way, but in my, and so, like, there is this sense, and it's interesting, depending on the group that you're in and what the motif is, like, that there's this very interesting intimidation factor, and I've been more aware of it in really like recent years, where I'm at some space, and we all naturally go to the people we already know, right? And so you walk into a space, and it feels like everybody else knows everybody else, except for you. Right. And so you're looking for like that one person that you know, so you can like, okay, I feel better about myself. And it's almost better if you go into that and you don't know anybody, because it just forces you to like make a decision. But what I've discovered is that there are some people, and I would almost put like the female gender to this, probably because I'm male, right? But like I see them and I'm just super intimidated, right? Like two women talking together, and I feel like they're looking at me like, who is this loser that just walked in? And what I've realized is there's a decent enough chance that maybe it's 50-50, whatever it is, that they're feeling the same thing, right? They're looking at me thinking, oh my God, he's just judging us. He thinks we're blah, blah, blah. And so like they're intimidated and I'm intimidated, and we both end up never interacting with each other because of that fear and intimidation. Whereas, and again, for me as a guy, I see a couple dudes talking, I'm just gonna go over there and like hang out. And even again, to go another layer deeper, I was at a more artistic networking meeting, like a lot of artists, a lot of just, sort of that etheric realm. And although I have a beard, I'm not like heavily tattooed. I'm not, I don't have like the heavy eye makeup. there was one group of people that like I literally tried. I walked over, I had soda water in my hand or whatever, and like tried to like engage, and like they were like, we're gonna keep talking and pretend you're not here. And I just gave up. I made a few good connections that night, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But in this swirl of things, you're absolutely right. The comparison piece can be deadly, and it leads us to that assumption, and assumptions are deadly, right? Like, and it could go either way. Like, I know so much more than you. So I'm so much more advanced than you. You have nothing to offer me. I'm not going to waste my time with you. Or, oh my gosh, you are like God level and I'm just a peasant. So I'm just going to stay over here with the peasants. And like, potentially you have one or both of those mindsets to where you're like, yeah, I don't have time for you. And so I read the room right. You don't want to talk to me. You don't have anything that you feel is worth offering to me. And that happens. And the other happens. It's like, yeah, you're just not even... You just want to go home and drink beers and do whatever. It's like, okay. But by and large, I think we all long for that genuine exchange of ideas and a mixture of vulnerability and elevation and lifting each other. So being willing to break out of your comfort zone. And so that's almost my next question, I think, is like, you talked about even like being on this podcast, like you're like, there's a nervous energy to it, which is good. But like when you have that, like, I know what I should do, I know what I need to step towards, and I'm terrified to do it. Do you have like some tricks, some things that you've picked up that you're like, okay, when it's go time, this is what I do to get through that? Or do you just kind of wait for something to punch you, or what?
It's a learning process for sure. I think that, anytime these things happen, whether it's, being put on a camera or being, asked to do something way out of my comfort zone, my first instinct that I'm really trying to get over is like go into a corner and hide. You want to escape and be like, why did I ever do any of this? Because, people are looking at you. And that's hard. But I think, my go-tos have been my support system. So, I talk to them, I talk it through. I called my mom on the way here.
Nice.
And like that, I'm close with my mom, but like, you talk through things and they remind you. It's like your pep talk for people. And sometimes I need that because I can't give it to myself. And then you believe it too. And then also just like what we talked about, altering your mindset of like drawing it positive, like, because as soon as you think that, whether it's about a situation or about yourself, I start kind of just thinking like, yeah, like I can speak to this. Yeah. And like I do know stuff, and no matter how much my negative self-talk tries to speak to that, there are some, like, I'm obviously here for a reason. Right. Like, I wouldn't be asked if, like, somebody didn't believe that. Yeah. And no matter, so it's mostly just those things. And I've heard often about, like, gratitude or, gratitude journals, but also, like success journals where you're just reminding yourself if you ever need to, which I'm not great at journaling. That's something that, sounds great. It sounds lovely. Yeah. My little journal's up here, always flipping it through its pages. Right. But I think that remembering what your successes have been, and even your not, like the faults that you have had, like just remembering that everything is like growing you and being and that's honestly the season I've been in that has like helped me get through a lot of this stuff, is just knowing, like, even if it's an absolute like flunk, then you learn something from it and you grew. And if you just absolutely have the growth mindset of just being able to be humble and know that you can live out the other side of anything that goes wrong. Like, even if you get up on stage and trip while you're walking on stage, that would be me. It's okay, and like you'll probably get people to laugh, and it'll be fine. Like, just remembering that worst case scenario. I don't know if anyone has watched This Is Us. It's that TV show. It's such a good TV show. It's so relatable on so many levels. It hits all the different things. But anyways, one of the parents on that show, they play the worst case scenario game.
Okay.
And when they, have something stressful coming up, it's like, what is the absolute worst case scenario?
Yeah.
And if you play that, it's like, okay, that's actually not so bad.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be fine. And that is a worst case scenario. So most likely it'll be probably fine. But really just thinking of growth and knowing that. And as you were speaking before, like I kept thinking about that pendulum that we were talking about when we had the conversation earlier about like pride and humble and like making sure that you're hitting that, like try to hit it in the middle. And if you feel yourself being like too, I don't even want to, arrogant. Yeah. Like you want to, bring yourself back to the middle, or if you feel yourself feeling the opposite of, insufficient and all those type of things, to bring yourself back. And I think it's really just, I'll always go back to talking about it, because I talk about stuff, like I don't really close up. I mean, some cases I do, and I know that not everyone's that way. But if I could just speak to everyone and just talk about it, talk about those things, talk about where you're going through, you'll find someone who can relate to it, and you can talk about it.
I like that. I want to focus on the family or the support system, but I want to just throw a comment in that I've been more aware of, and the way you articulated it was really great. But we have a tendency to be on the front side, I guess, of a challenging situation, right? That what you're describing, where like the temptation is to catastrophize and like, oh, everything's going to be terrible, and it's like, what is the worst thing that could happen? Yeah. And I think that when we reflect, as you were talking about, when we reflect on the times that we've failed forward, or things didn't go the way we wanted to, or even ended catastrophically, and we got through it, right? Talking about like when you discovered that your oldest had Down syndrome, it's like, that's big, heavy stuff. And here you are, you're still here. And when you look at that and remind yourself that like at one point I was on the, how is this gonna play out side of it? And as it's played out, it hasn't been as horrific as maybe the worst case scenarios that were playing in your mind were. Then when it's like I'm sitting at the intersection of being on my first podcast, or the intersection of writing your first book, or whatever that is, first networking meeting, when you're sitting at the front side of that, where it's like all these, reminding yourself like, hey, I've done some pretty crazy stuff, I've done some hard things, and they went well, they went poorly, they went however they went, but I'm still here. And I like a lot of times to bring myself and people that I'm working with to this point of like, right now, this moment, you are uniquely you, and everything you've experienced up to this moment is what makes you who you are, and the same for me. And this intersection of two people and this color can never happen again, because the next time we meet, we will be different people, and we will have had all these different experiences. And so whatever moment you're in, everything good and bad, and I don't even love the words good and bad, but like enthralling and challenging, happy, sad, like all the swirl of feelings and things that brought you to this moment is what makes you who you are, and uniquely positioned to show up in that space, whether it's sitting with somebody that's grieving, or rejoicing and being happy with somebody that's done something great and fantastic. It's like, just be who you are in that moment, and don't worry about who you could have been if things had gone differently. Yeah. And again, pivoting to like, I think the more tactile, beneficial like proposal for people out there is that support system is everything. And my wife and I were going through some really challenging things and some really wonderful things. And in the midst of it, I had somebody that's close to both of us, that knows us, speak very affirmingly to us about something that we were feeling that maybe not imposter syndrome, but like, are we just completely messing this up? And it has to do with raising kids, right? And so like, if you think that you're doing that wrong, that you're like somehow messing your kids up, that's a really rough one to wrestle with. And this friend, who is frequently on the Friday show, she'll know who she is, spoke so reaffirmingly to how I needed that so badly. Like it just, I mean, like I became very emotional, and it was like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize how badly I needed somebody to just say, hey, not only are you doing okay, like I look up to the way that you're doing this thing that you're doing, whatever it happens to be, is like, oh, I needed that. And I'll balance that with, because I know myself listening to this, if I were to hear that, and a lot of other people that might be listening to that, you have to balance that with people that will also point out your blind spots. Yeah. And be like, hey, you're crushing it, and also might want to just like consider looking a little more closely at this aspect of what you're doing, because no matter how well we're crushing it, we still can grow a little bit. Yeah. But man, having that, you being able to call your mom, and I don't know what the conversation, but I can imagine it, because I have a great relationship with my mom, and I love that, like, just that presence that moms can bring, that dads can bring, that brothers and sisters and friends, like you have to know who those people are in your life, and maybe you have people in your life that are both, that will offer you like, hey, you're crushing it, but I just want you to be aware, this is how that's coming across. I know spouses, I think, are great for that, right? Yeah. We like, I love you fiercely, and
which is honestly the hardest one to take from.
I think it's the hardest one to deliver and the hardest one to receive. Yeah. For sure, for sure. But having that, and even being able to say like, okay, we're sitting here on May 6th right now, which is the most recent Friday guest was Steve Hicks. And he was very, he likes to talk about being like the loud American, which I won't get into it in this thing here. We talked about it on the show. But like, he's probably in my life, he's one of those ones that's like, I'm gonna be like, dude, I feel like I'm crushing it, but like, point out my flaws. What am I missing? And he's just gonna be brutally honest about it. Yeah. And he is like, I don't want to completely pigeonhole him into that. He's also really an encouraging and affirming guy. It's just that's like his role in my life. I'm like, all right, here's what I'm thinking. He's like, nope, nobody's gonna do that. What would appeal to so there's that, and then I have other people in my life that are pretty much just affirming. And actually, humorously, my oldest son is probably one of those like always affirming, like almost anything I do, if I say like, what do you think about this, he's like, that's great, Dad. I was actually recently writing an email that I needed to send, and I sent it to him and my wife, and he was just like, 2 thumbs up, great job. And my wife like actually had some constructive criticism, but like we were just talking about, I was like, oh, that stings, but also you're right, and I need to, like, that helped, because it helped me show up with that email better than I would have otherwise. So man, I think that's just huge to all of this, is that support system.
And I think being aware too, because I think we have a tendency, because we don't want to hear those negative things, we have a tendency to push those people like away too. Yeah. Because you don't, like, we need that, we want that, but sometimes it's just like, I don't want to hear what I'm doing wrong. And like, I mean, that's just a humbling thing. Like, none of us really want to know what we're doing bad. Do we want to? Yes, like we do, because we want to grow from it. But hearing it in this moment, I feel like, I mean, going through my, teen, college, all those years, of course, those are the most times where it's like my way. Like, I want to do it my way. Mom, dad, nope, and all friends, whatever. Like, I know the right way. Right. And I think even into adulthood, I have this tendency to, especially my spouse, but it's like, no, you're wrong. And it's like, no, like you have to train yourself to for sure be receptive to that constructive criticism, because that's what it is. And just imagine like being being open to hearing those things and not pushing those people away, because if you always have cheerleaders and no one else, like, then you're going to be reaching that pride status
Right.
like pretty fast and not have anyone to like bring you down back to the middle. And because not all of us are perfect, we are not perfect humans, and you have to allow for those people to give you that insight. And yeah, I think that's just something that's really important to have in your support group, as you spoke to, but to definitely have and allow for those people to, and obviously it's with anything in your life, right? Like, obviously having kids, you know, you don't want, you get to shape kind of them, and you see these certain friends that are speaking into them. It's like, maybe not, let's not listen to them and let's go a different route. And so you have to be aware of that too, of like who's speaking into you, because I mean, you know, you hear the you are who your friends are, you are who your friends, no, how does that go?
I've heard that you become like the 5 people that you're the closest to.
And I think that being aware of that too, of making sure, like, building that really strong foundation of people who know you are who you are, which obviously my mom, she raised me like those people, my husband, like, and I have some really close friends that know who I am at my core, and they do alter me, but I trust them to alter me in those ways because I trust them. Right. And I respect their opinions. And so I really think that being aware of that and all those, and when you speak to raising kids and stuff and feeling like you're gonna ruin them, like with and this is partly the comparison part too, but there's so many tools, resources out there that it's like, which one do I do? If I'm not doing that, I'm doing it wrong. And that's similar to, you know, business too. I mean, business and kids kind of go hand in hand in a lot of ways, but when you are constantly afraid that you're doing your kids wrong, and like, you know, as an adult, we have some childhood whatever, like everyone struggles with something, and you keep going into this mindset like, oh my gosh, I'm ruining my kids, they're gonna be adults and they're gonna have to go to therapy and like all the things, and it's just like, no, like, you're probably doing okay, and it'll probably be just fine. I mean, obviously there are some like things where you can, I mean, learn from Heidi, like, you know, and just I know she speaks so well of all that stuff, but I just think that it's all good.
I always take it from the opposite perspective. It's like, I know for sure that I'm messing my kids up in some way. I just want to do it in such a way that they can recover more easily when they get to be adults. It's like, ultimately, you know, there's just a lot of different paths, and one path ruins them for a different path. You know, and I use that word ruin tongue in cheek, where it's like, it may not be as ruinous, right? But like, this is the one I use with my oldest, you know, when talking about like cuss words. It's like, listen, I'm not telling you that cuss words are bad or good, or that you should or shouldn't when you become an adult, but I am training you now to have the level of self-discipline that allows you to not have to use those words in your common language, in your talking to people. And if you end up in an environment where you need to use those words to fit in or whatever, like, it's a lot easier, I think, to like learn this new language of like F this and F that, and like, you can fall into that. It's a lot harder to fall into refraining from. So like, I'm going to err on the side of teaching you how to put restraints in your life. And that, not just with cussing, but that's just such an easy, obvious one. It's like, and it's a poor example, because I don't know that there's any situation, even if you're surrounded by people that use cuss words, like, you don't have to fit in with them in order to work with them. But that's,
I mean, as kids, that's what it feels like.
It does.
So,
It does. So just interacting with that. And honestly, I feel like we could keep going like all day, and I know that we both have a little bit of time here, but I think we should probably wrap this up so that there's still something to talk about when you come on Friday. Do you happen to know the date off the top of your head that you're going to be here? Friday, May something, right?
I want to say the 23rd.
Okay.
I believe it's May 23rd.
23rd-ish. We'll put it in the comments so that everybody knows, but really looking forward to having you out on Friday. I would say this to the audience, if you're listening to this, you may be catching this before the Friday where we're talking about it or after. Either way, if this spoke to you in some way and you can think of somebody that would benefit from this conversation, we love just talking. Like, it's just great. We love presenting and putting things out there, but really we want this to reach an audience, and if it was helpful for you, maybe it would be helpful for someone else. Drop a line in the comments so that we can respond and be kind of interactive with this, but most of all, just share this with somebody. And even if you don't share the video, share the idea. Just be kind of open to sharing the value that you bring to the table to your audience, whatever that looks like. Even if it's your kids, if that's your audience, share with them the reality and the vulnerability of like, hey, I don't have all this figured out either, and we can work on it together. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Kelsey, for being here. This is awesome. And looking forward to having the conversation on Friday.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.